greatest fighting upsets of all time. Let's be honest, we all love Rocky stories. Whether it's your favorite fighter or not, there's something special in seeing massive underdogs pulling big upsets. Whether it's MMA, kickboxing, karate, or Taekwondo, we've witnessed some shocking moments when the underdogs beat down the legends. Let's have a look at some of the greatest fighting upsets of all time. Rashitov versus Bradley Sinden. The 19-year-old from Uzbekistan, Rashitov, made everyone stunned by defeating Great Britain's Bradley Sinden 34-29. Rashitov made a stunning comeback early in the first round before taking a 5 advantage into the second. Defending world champion Sinden had his hands full with Rashitov, finding gaps to land shots to the trunk. He managed to fight his way back into contention, getting within 4 points going into the third and final round, but the tenacious Rashitov fought back valiantly, landing a 4-point turning body kick inside the final 15 seconds for a 34-29 victory to claim Uzbekistan's first ever medal in Taekwondo. Kamilla Alazada versus Jade Jones. Here's another Taekwondo upset. Jade Jones, one of Britain's strongest medal hopes at the Tokyo Olympics, fell to a shock defeat in the first round against Kamilla Alazada, who represents the Olympic refugee team. She upset Jones with a stirring third-round performance. Their bout was tied 10-10 with just 30 seconds left, but Alazada scored a pair of 2-point body kicks to take the head before hanging on for a 4-point victory. That, for sure, was a massive victory for the refugee team member. Arkadius Rakic versus Badrihari. Make no mistake, this is one of the biggest upsets in kickboxing history. Rakic was given little chance against Hari by most fans and experts. For over a round, the conventional wisdom held true, and Hari dominated Rakic, knocking him down 3 times. Then the fight changed in an instant. Rakic connected with a desperation high kick, knocking Hari down and finishing the match. Sammy versus Yodsanklai. At 1 Enter the Dragon on Friday, May 17, 2019, Sammy, AK-47 Sana, shocked the world. He delivered the performance of his career as he stunned the boxing computer Yodsanklai and eliminated one of the pre-tournament favorites from the 1 Featherweight Kickboxing World Grand Prix. The shock was on after an incredible opening round in which the 30-year-old Frenchman connected with a high right kick that put AK-47 firmly in the driver's seat. Yodsanklai fought back violently and traded powerful punches and knee strikes. That wasn't enough to save him from the defeat. The 3 judges ringside didn't take long to render a unanimous decision in Sana's favor. Superbond versus Giorgio Petrosian. This, for sure, is one of the best upset knockouts in the history of kickboxing. Petrosian, considered an all-time great, had been undefeated since 2013 and was the favorite to win this fight hands down. However, Superbond of Thailand was able to control this closely matched fight. He never fell for traps set by his expert opponent and chose which exchanges to engage in, throwing heavy body kicks at the end of exchanges. Superbond was setting for a huge head kick knockout. One of the most impressive knockouts of the past 10 years in kickboxing. Serra defeats Georges St. Pierre. Prior to their fight at UFC 69 in April 2007, Georges St. Pierre was a heavy favorite over Serra, and analysts were even talking about the future challengers for the champion Pierre before Serra had even entered the cage. Serra entered the cage looking confident and energetic. But the question was, can he get Georges to the ground? And even if he can, what can he do once he gets there, because Pierre's no slouch on the ground? While St. Pierre was considered the more skilled striker heading in, earlier he was having difficulty dealing with Serra's old blend of power striking, aggression, and short stature. Pierre missed most of his straight punches and head kicks. About 3 minutes into the round, Serra caught Pierre behind the ear with a right hook, which marked the beginning of the end for the champion, as he was unable to regain his footing and was ultimately pounded into submission at the 3:25 mark of the opening frame. Georges is the future of the sport by far, but this is possibly the greatest upset in UFC history. Weidman versus Anderson Silva. It's hard to believe now, looking back, but this was the beginning of the end for Anderson Silva. Before the fight, Silva was on a 17-fight win streak and had defended the middleweight title a record 10 straight times. He'd even begun taunting opponents mid-fight and dropping his hands, daring them to even try and punch him. When he tried to pull the same stunt against Chris Weidman, he was promptly tagged on the chin and knocked out cold in the second round. Silva began showboating like he always did, and Weidman caught him with a perfectly placed left hook. When this happened, everyone was shocked and wondered what had just happened. The relatively inexperienced and unknown Weidman had knocked out one of the greatest boxers in the history of UFC. Randy Couture versus Sylvia. We just can't speak about the greatest upsets in fighting without mentioning what Randy Couture was able to accomplish in the closing stages of his UFC career. His win over Sylvia was a massive shock and perhaps Couture's finest performance ever. Sylvia is one of the best heavyweight fighters in the history of MMA. He won the UFC title by beating Andrei Arlovsky at UFC 59 and defended it 2 times before facing Couture at UFC 68. When the fight started, right from the first bell, Randy proved us all to be wrong. He stood in front of Sylvia and he nearly ended the fight with a hard right hand in the very first round. Also, he used his elite wrestling skills to dominate the champion on the mats and control the fight. In the end, Randy Couture won the unanimous decision and truly showed the world that anything is possible in MMA. Ronda Rousey versus Holm. What took place that night in Melbourne in front of 90,000 people will forever be the biggest jaw-dropping moment in MMA. Ronda Rousey is by far the most dominant female MMA fighter in history. She's the former Olympic bronze medalist in judo, and she deserves a lot of credit for pushing the women's MMA on the map. When UFC booked her against Holm, nobody knew what to expect. Holm didn't have any grappling game, so things were simple in mind. Ronda will play with Holm on the mats and submit her like all previous rivals. But Holm was able to stay calm in the heat of the moment and applied the perfect strategy. She used great footwork to avoid Ronda's clinch and quickly set up the jab. Just a minute into the second round, Holm pulled one of the greatest upsets by landing a hard head kick. Ronda was out cold. Fedor Emelianenko versus Fabricio Werdum. Hands down, Werdum submitting Fedor was a big upset for our generation. I can still hear the voice of Strikeforce commentators screaming, "Fedor losing for the first time," while literally losing their minds. In his prime, Fedor was by far the most dominant MMA fighter. He was undefeated for 10 years, and he truly enjoyed a god status in Japan. Coming into the fight against Werdum, Fedor was on a 27-fight win streak and looked sharper than ever. But overlooking Werdum was a huge mistake. He was the former World Jiu-Jitsu champion and an upcoming MMA talent. When the fight started, just a minute later, Werdum caught Fedor into their armbar. Fedor managed to escape for a moment, but Werdum reset the submission and locked up the nasty triangle choke. Fedor tried to defend, but he tapped out just a minute into the fight. Boyce Gracie versus the rest. Yes, you read that right. Boyce Gracie pulled the greatest upset in MMA history by defeating everyone else in a single night. When he introduced himself to UFC 1 back in 1993, nobody expected anything out of this skinny guy. But when Boyce began submitting fighters much bigger than him, the world was in massive disbelief. Boyce Gracie came to UFC 1 well prepared, and in a single night, he submitted the boxer Art Jimerson, Kim Shamrock in the semifinals, and Gerard Gordeau in the finals. In a single night, Boyce was a phenomenal fighter and the most influential MMA fighter as well. And with that, we've reached the end of our video. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more interesting videos, make sure you subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell. We'll see you in the next one.